Welcome to Episode 59, Supply Chain Risk Management, Part 3, Evidence, Approvals, Pitfalls. Our focus is how to prove supplier controls with artifacts that stand up to scrutiny. Proof begins with clarity about what a control is supposed to do, then links that intent to items you can see, read, and test. A control without evidence is a claim. A control with weak evidence is a distraction. Think of artifacts as a chain. Source, method, result, and conclusion must connect cleanly. When each link is labeled and dated, you can explain assurance in plain language. That is how credibility is earned. Building on that foundation, contracts must show explicit security obligations in everyday words. The agreement should name required controls, set delivery times for artifacts, and define consequences when items are late or incomplete. For example, a managed service might commit to multi-factor enforcement for administrators, monthly vulnerability scans, and a yearly independent assessment with report sharing. A clause that looks firm but never names proof will drift into argument. So write obligations as outcomes plus evidence, not slogans. Clear language prevents the slow erosion that happens when everyone thinks a promise means something different. It also makes renewal talks simpler and faster. From there, attestations and certifications can help, but only inside their true scope. An attestation is a signed statement that certain practices are in place. A certification is a third-party opinion about defined areas. Both are snapshots with borders that matter. Imagine a report that covers a data center but excludes support contractors who handle tickets with sensitive details. The uncovered area is your risk. Ask suppliers to mark the scope boundary on a simple diagram and list what lies outside it. Then decide what extra validation you need for those edges. Scope honesty avoids false comfort and wasted effort. Extending that idea, independent test reports with findings provide fresh insight beyond routine paperwork. A good report names what was tested, how it was tested, and what was found, and it ties each result to risk. Ask for method detail that another assessor could follow, and require that raw evidence be available on request. For example, a web application test should show which endpoints were probed, which inputs produced issues, and which proofs of concept were verified safely. Avoid reports that read like marketing slides. Favor ones that read like field notes you could hand to an engineer tomorrow. Real tests change behavior. In practice, strong programs pair findings with remediation plans and closure evidence. A plan lists actions, owners, and dates, while closure evidence proves the fix works as intended. Suppose a weak cipher was in use. Closure would include a configuration change record, a new scan result, and a brief validation note explaining how clients were tested. Tie every closure back to the original finding identifier so the thread is unbroken. Small steps count. Clear lines from problem to proof teach teams what done really means and keep the same issue from reappearing under a new name later. Alongside fixes, software bill of materials submissions, often shortened to SBOM, component lists, and version histories make dependencies visible. An SBOM is an ingredient label for code, while a version history explains what changed and when. Both allow quick triage when a library is flagged in an advisory. Ask suppliers to submit updated lists with every release and to mark components that are dormant or deprecated. A short micro-scenario helps. A new flaw hits a popular JSON parser and your register shows exactly where it lives. Minutes matter. Visibility makes speed possible without panic. Complementing inventories, authenticity proofs such as signatures and hashes confirm integrity from build to delivery. Code signing shows who produced a release, and cryptographic hashes confirm that nothing changed in transit. Require that keys live in hardware-backed modules, that revocation procedures are tested, and that clients verify signatures before install. For hardware, pair serial checks with signed manifests and receive-in checks that log mismatches before devices touch production. It is simple and it works. When origin and integrity are verified every time, one bad mirror, box, or courier cannot silently break your defenses. From there, support commitments, service-level agreements, and service-level objectives must be recorded and testable. An SLA is the promise. An SLO is the internal target that shows how the promise will be met. Ask suppliers to publish uptime, response time, and patch turnaround metrics with dates and data sources. Keep the measures few and clear so trends are obvious, not arguable. A short example helps. A provider reports 99.9% uptime quarterly with incident tickets linked to outages. Numbers are not the point, decisions are. Evidence makes those decisions faster and fairer. Equally important, exception approvals need expiry dates and compensation tracking. An exception allows operation while a gap is being closed, and it must have a reason, a plan, and a clock. For instance, a supplier may run a legacy module for 60 days with tightened monitoring and rate limits until an upgrade lands. Track compensations like extra logging or narrowed access and show when they will be removed. Expired exceptions without action become quiet risk. Time boxes, named owners, and visible status hold the line between flexibility and drift. Flexibility is useful, drift is not. In shared environments, inheritance verifications and residual risks round out the picture. Inheritance means you rely on a provider's control, such as physical security or baseline patching. Verification means you reviewed the provider's artifacts and confirmed they apply to your use. Residual risk records explain what remains and who accepted it. A brief scenario clarifies the idea. A cloud platform rotates keys as a service. You verify the scope covers your tenancy, and you accept the small delay window during rotation as residual. Write it down. Shared responsibility only works when both sides prove their part. However, many programs stumble on a simple issue: stale, unchecked paperwork. Evidence can rot quietly. Reports age out, certificates expire, scopes change without notice. Set freshness windows for key items and label each artifact with its due date. Then spot check randomly to prove that on file still means true. A 10-minute check can prevent a 10-week incident. Old paper tells a comforting story about yesterday. Current evidence tells the truth about today. Trust the new story. It is the only one that matters in an emergency. Related to staleness are anti-patterns like questionnaires without verification. A supplier checks yes on every line, and everyone moves on. Do not stop there. Pick a small sample and ask for proof, a screenshot, a log extract, or a short demo. Rotate the sampled questions each cycle to avoid ritual answers. People respond to what you measure. When verification becomes normal, answers become careful and controls improve. A light touch works if it is steady and visible. Quiet rigor beats loud paperwork every time. To keep the system moving, governance must define approvals, renewals, and escalation paths. Approvals record who decided, on what evidence, and with which conditions. Renewals revisit scope, freshness, and performance trends instead of rubber stamping last year's story. Escalation paths say who gets called when a supplier misses a deadline or an incident breaks containment. Keep these maps short and public inside the team. Everyone should know the next step before the meeting starts. Governance is not theater. It is the simple path from signal to decision to action. Make it obvious. In closing, evidence that withstands challenge is specific, fresh, and traceable from claim to proof. Contracts say what must exist. Reports show what was tested. Plans explain what will change. And closures prove the change worked. Scorecards and timelines keep the whole cycle honest without drowning people in files. When artifacts tell one clear story across suppliers, renewals, and incidents, leadership can act with speed and confidence. That is the point. Strong supply chain assurance is not louder paperwork. It is quieter doubt, earned by facts you can show on any day to anyone who asks. Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.